Jake Morrison stood in the huge metal hallway, looking at the massive doors in front of him. His hands were sweating inside his gloves. He had traveled across the galaxy for this moment. Behind those doors sat the High Council of the Deathworld Alliance. They would decide if Earth could join their group. The space station around him was bigger than any city on Earth. Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars, a home for the toughest species in the galaxy. Only creatures from the most dangerous worlds could live here. Jake took a deep breath and walked forward. The doors opened with a loud hiss. Inside was a room shaped like a bowl, with seats going up the curved walls. 6 beings sat in those seats, each one different and scary in their own way. Jake walked to the center and stood on a small platform. "I am Jake Morrison," he said, his voice echoing in the big room. "I speak for Earth and all humans. We ask to join the Deathworld Alliance." A deep laugh came from above. Jake looked up to see Vextar, the leader of the council. He came from a world called Pyros, where the ground was always on fire. His skin looked like black rock with red cracks that glowed like lava. When he moved, Jake could smell sulfur and burning metal. "Another soft species thinks they are tough," Vextar said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Tell us, human, what makes your pretty blue world so dangerous?" Jake had prepared for this question. He pulled out a small device that showed pictures in the air above his hand. Earth appeared, spinning slowly, blue and white, and beautiful. "Earth has many dangers," Jake began. "We have storms that can destroy whole cities. The ground shakes and splits open. Mountains explode with fire and ash. The weather can change from burning hot to freezing cold." Another council member spoke. "Up." This was Korth from Frostbite, a world covered in ice. Her body was white and thin with long arms and legs. Ice crystals grew from her skin like armor. "Your world has a comfortable temperature," she said, her voice like wind through caves. "We have seen the reports. Humans can walk outside without protection. On my world, the air itself freezes solid. Your people would die in seconds." Jake felt his hope slipping away. "But we have diseases that kill millions. Tiny enemies so small you cannot see them. They attack our bodies every day." Diseases. This came from Zokran, who lived on a world where radiation would cook most beings in minutes. His body was covered in thick plates that glowed green in the dark. "On my world, the very light from our sun burns flesh from bones. Your sun gives warmth and grows your food." Jake tried again. "We have predators, large animals with teeth and claws that hunt humans." "How large?" asked Commander Thex from Ironhold. She was short but very wide, with muscles like steel cables. Her world had gravity so strong it could crush most beings flat. "The biggest land predator weighs about 800 kilograms, Jake said. The council burst into laughter. It sounded like an avalanche mixed with a thunderstorm. Commander Thex wiped tears from her eyes. 800 kilograms, she gasped. "On my world, the small creatures weigh more than that. The large ones could step on your entire city." Jake felt his face turn red. Everything he said made Earth sound safer, not more dangerous. He looked around the room at these beings who had survived worlds that would kill him in heartbeats. What could he say? Vextar raised one hand and the laughter stopped. "Human, you seem like a brave creature. But your world is not a death world, it is a garden, a nice place where soft things grow. Look at you," said Dr. Nix Coldwater from Frostbite, pointing at Jake with a finger like an icicle. "You breathe the air without help. You stand in normal gravity without strain. Your skin shows you have never fought for your life against your own planet." Jake opened his mouth to argue, but Vextar spoke again. "We have rules in this alliance. Only those who have faced real death can join. Only those whose worlds tried to kill them every day can understand what it means to be strong." The leader stood up. His body was 3 meters tall and covered in armor that looked like volcanic glass. When he moved, small flames danced around his feet. "Your application is denied, human. Go back to your garden world. Make it more dangerous if you want to return. Add some volcanoes. Increase the gravity. Fill the air with poison. Then maybe we will listen. The other council members nodded. Jake felt like he had been hit in the stomach. He had come so far, hoped for so much. Now it was over. But, Jake said, his voice getting stronger, you have never seen Earth. You only know what your computers tell you. How can you judge a world you have never visited? Vexitar tilted his head. What are you saying, human? Jake's heart was beating fast, but he had an idea. Maybe it was a stupid idea, but it was all he had left. Come and see for yourself. Visit Earth. Walk on our world. Meet our people. Then decide if we are soft or strong. The council members looked at each other. This was not normal. Most rejected species just left and never came back. You invite us to your world? Asked Commander Thex. I do, Jake said. Come as our guests. Stay as long as you want. See everything. If you still think Earth is just a garden, I will never ask again. Korth made a sound like wind through ice caves. The human has courage at least. Most species would slink away after rejection. It could be interesting, said Warrior Priest Gron from Bernhardt. He had been quiet until now, but his voice carried the authority of someone who had survived impossible things. We could study this species that thinks it is tough. Vexitar was quiet for a long time. The room was so silent Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Finally, the leader spoke. Very well, human. Some of us may visit your garden world, but know this. When we see how easy your life has been, your rejection will be final. No other chances. Jake bowed his head. Thank you. That is all I ask. As he turned to leave, Jake heard Vexitar say something to the other council members in their own language. He could not understand the words, but he heard them laugh again. Walking back down the long hallway, Jake felt both hope and fear. He had gotten what he asked for, but now he had to prove that Earth was more than it seemed. He had to show these beings that humans were stronger than they looked. The transport ship that would take him home was waiting. As Earth grew bigger in the front window, Jake started planning. He would show them everything: the storms, the earthquakes, the diseases, the predators. He would make them understand that surviving on Earth took a different kind of strength. But, deep down, a small voice in his head asked, what if they were right? What if Earth really was just a garden compared to their worlds? What if humans were soft? Jake pushed that thought away. Soon the Alliance would learn the truth about Earth and humanity. He just hoped it would be enough. 6 months passed before the message came. Jake was working in his office when his computer made a soft beep. The words on the screen made his heart jump. 3 members of the Deathworld Alliance will visit Earth next week. Prepare for their arrival. Jake ran to find Dr. Lisa Carter. She was in her lab looking at slides under a microscope. Lisa was the best xenobiologist on Earth, someone who studied alien life forms. They're coming, Jake said, breathing hard from running. Lisa looked up from her microscope. Who's coming? The Alliance. 3 of them agreed to visit Earth. Lisa's eyes went wide. She knew how important this was. Which ones? Jake read from his tablet. Commander Zara Thex from Ironhold, Dr. Nix Coldwater from Frostbite, and Warrior Priest Gron from Bernhardt. That's quite a group, Lisa said, sitting back in her chair. High gravity, ice world, and radiation planet. They'll expect Earth to be easy compared to their homes. That's what we need to change, Jake said. We have one chance to show them they're wrong. Lisa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, people were walking around the research center. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and everything looked peaceful and safe. Where do we start? She asked. I have an idea, Jake said, but they're not going to like it. 1 week later, the alien ship landed at the spaceport in Wyoming. Jake and Lisa were waiting, along with Captain Ben Torres, a former soldier who now worked as a diplomatic guard. Ben was tall and strong, with scars on his hands from old battles. The ship's door opened with a hiss of air. The 3 aliens walked out, and Jake felt small just looking at them. Commander Zara Thex was the first, one down the ramp. She was shorter than Jake, but twice as wide, with muscles that looked like they were carved from stone. Her skin was gray and rough, and when she walked, the ground seemed to shake a little under her feet. Dr. Nix Coldwater came next. He was tall and thin, with white skin that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Ice crystals covered his body like natural armor. When he breathed out, Jake could see his breath in the warm air. Last was Warrior Priest Gron. He wore a suit that covered his whole body, but Jake could see green light glowing through the dark material. A device on his chest made clicking sounds, probably counting radiation levels. "Welcome to Earth," Jake said, stepping forward. Commander Thex looked around at the blue sky and green grass. She frowned. "This is your Deathworld? It looks like a vacation spot." "Appearances can fool you," Lisa said with a smile. "We thought we'd start your tour at Yellowstone National Park." Dr. Coldwater tilted his head. "A park? You want to show us a park?" "Trust us," Captain Torres said. "You'll understand soon enough." They loaded into a large vehicle and drove toward the mountains. The aliens looked out the windows as they traveled. Jake could see them relaxing as they saw farms, small towns, and families having picnics. "Your people look soft," Commander Thex said. "Where I come from, children learn to fight gravity that would crush you flat. Here, they play games." "Our children do learn to fight," Ben said quietly. "Just not the way you might think." They reached Yellowstone as the sun was getting low in the sky. Lisa led them along a walking path toward the famous geyser called Old Faithful. Other human families were walking the same path, taking pictures and enjoying the evening. "This is what you wanted to show us?" Dr. Coldwater asked. "Humans walking. For pleasure?" "Wait for it," Lisa said, checking her watch. The ground started to shake. Just a little at first, then more. The three aliens immediately got into fighting positions, ready for attack. But the humans around them just stopped walking and pointed at something ahead. Then Old Faithful exploded. Hot water and steam shot up into the air, higher than a tall building. The sound was like thunder that wouldn't stop. The ground shook harder, and Jake could feel the heat on his face even from far away. The three aliens stared with their mouths open. Commander Thex was the first to speak. "Your planet is trying to kill everyone here," she shouted over the noise. "Why aren't these people running?" Lisa smiled. "Because this happens every 90 minutes. We built boardwalks and benches so people can watch it safely." Dr. Coldwater looked around at the human families who were taking pictures of the erupting geyser. Children were laughing and clapping their hands. "You bring your young ones to watch." "The planet explode?" he asked. "It's not exploding," Jake explained. "It's just hot water from deep underground. We have thousands of these geysers in this park alone." Warrior Priest Gron's device was clicking faster now. The radiation from the heated minerals. This would be dangerous on most worlds. "We swim in hot springs like this," Ben said casually. "People pay money to relax in the hot water." The geyser started to calm down and the tourists began walking again. The three aliens watched in amazement as humans treated the event like it was normal. "On my world," Dr. Coldwater said slowly, "we have one hot spring. We built our capital city around it because the heat keeps us alive. You have thousands and you use them for fun." They walked further into the park as the sun went down. Lisa pointed out more geysers, hot pools, and steam vents. "This whole area sits on top of a supervolcano," she explained. "The hot spots you see are just the surface signs." "A supervolcano?" Commander Thex stopped walking. "You mean this entire region could explode?" "Well, yes," Lisa said. "It's done it before. About every 600,000 years or so. It's only been 640,000 years since the last eruption, so we're probably due soon." "And you live here anyway?" Warrior Priest Gron asked. "Millions of people live within a few hundred kilometers of this place," Jake said. "We have early warning, systems, evacuation plans, emergency supplies. But mostly, we just accept that it might happen someday." The aliens looked at each other. This was not what they had expected from the soft humans of the garden world. They set up camp for the night in a cabin near the geyser basin. As they sat around a fire eating human food, Dr. Coldwater asked more questions. "Tell us about your world's gravity," he said to Captain Torres. "Our scans showed it was normal." What's normal? Ben asked back. Most inhabited worlds have gravity. Between 0.6 and 1.2 times standard, Commander Thex answered. Earth showed 1.0, which is average. Ben laughed. Earth gravity is the standard. We made the measurements that everyone else uses. The aliens looked confused. Lisa explained. When humans first went to space, we used our home gravity as the baseline. What you call standard gravity is actually Earth gravity. Commander Thex stood up and walked around. She had been expecting to feel heavy and slow on Earth, but instead she felt normal. You mean most species live in lighter gravity than this? About 2/3 of them, Jake said. The rest live in gravity so heavy it would crush most other species. Like my people, Commander Thex said proudly. How heavy is Ironhold's gravity? Lisa asked. 3 times standard. 3 times this. Commander Thex lifted a large rock with one hand to show her strength. Ben nodded, looking impressed. That's tough. Our strongest athletes train at up to 1.5 times Earth gravity. Most people would pass out at 2 times. But you live at 1 times. Every day, Dr. Coldwater said, starting to understand. Your children grow up in this gravity. They play sports, run, jump, all while fighting a force that would slow down most galactic species. We don't think about it, Lisa said. It's just normal for us. Later that night, Jake lay in his sleeping bag listening to the aliens talk quietly in their own languages. He couldn't understand the words, but their voices sounded different, less certain, more curious. Outside the cabin, he could hear the sounds of Yellowstone at night. Geysers hissed and bubbled. Small earthquakes made the ground tremble. Steam rose from dozens of hot springs, carrying the smell of sulfur and heated rock. To Jake, these were the comfortable sounds of home, but he was starting to realize that what felt normal to humans might seem dangerous to others. Tomorrow they would see more of Earth. Jake had plans to show them weather, wildlife, and maybe visit a hospital. He wanted them to understand that Earth's dangers were different from other worlds, but just as real. As he fell asleep, Jake could hear one of the aliens. He thought it was Dr. Coldwater, talking to the others. Perhaps, the alien was saying, we should look more carefully at this world and these humans. Jake smiled in the darkness. Maybe, just maybe, his plan was starting to work. The next morning, Jake woke up to the sound of his tablet beeping. He had a message from Dr. Amy Stevens at the Climate Research Station in Alaska. She wanted to know if the alien visitors would like to see real Earth weather. Jake smiled as he read the message. Amy was perfect for what he had planned. After breakfast, they loaded back into their vehicle. This time, they were heading to a different kind of dangerous place. The aliens seemed more interested today. They asked questions about everything they saw. Your roads go through the mountains, Commander Thex observed. On my world, we build around obstacles. You build through them. It's easier to move the rock than change where we want to go, Captain Torres said. Dr. Coldwater pointed at a river running next to the road. You have water everywhere, liquid water just flowing freely. Is that unusual? Lisa asked. On most worlds, water is the most valuable thing there is, Warrior Priest Gran said. His voice came through a speaker in his suit. Wars are fought over a single water source. You use it to make your paths look pretty. Lisa had never thought about it that way. The small stream beside the road would be worth more than gold on other planets. They reached their destination at noon, Denver General Hospital. The 3 aliens looked confused as they walked through the parking lot. Why are we visiting a healing center? Dr. Coldwater asked. Because you need to meet Dr. Susan Wright, Jake said. She studies the enemies that attack us every day. They found Dr. Wright in her laboratory. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. When she saw the aliens, she got excited in the way that only scientists do when they find something new to study. Fascinating, she said, walking around Dr. Coldwater. Your body temperature must be well below freezing. How do your cells survive? Special proteins in our blood, he answered. They keep ice crystals from forming. But what enemies were you talking about? Dr. Wright led them to her lab. On tables around the room were microscopes, computers, and machines that hummed quietly. She picked up a small dish and put it under a microscope. "Look," she said to Commander Thex. The alien looked through the microscope and jumped back. "What are those things moving around?" "Bacteria from a human mouth," Dr. Wright said calmly. "There are about 100 billion of them in each human mouth at any time." The three aliens stared at her. Warrior Priest Gron's radiation counter started, clicking faster. "You have 100 billion enemies living inside you?" he asked. "Oh, those aren't enemies," Dr. Wright laughed. "Those are the good ones. They help us digest food and fight off the bad bacteria. The enemies are much smaller and much more dangerous." She switched to a different microscope. "These are viruses. They're so small that thousands of them could fit inside one bacterium. They attack our cells, take them over, and make copies of themselves." Dr. Coldwater looked through the microscope. His ice crystal skin seemed to glow brighter. "How many of these attack you?" "Right now?" "Probably several. Different types," Dr. Wright said. "The human immune system fights them off constantly. Every second of every day there's a war going on inside our bodies." She walked to a computer and showed them charts and graphs. "Here's data from a typical human over 1 year. This person caught the flu twice, had food poisoning once, got 3 different cold viruses, and fought off dozens of other infections that never developed into illness." "And they survived all of this?" Warrior Priest Gron asked. "Not only survived, but went to work every day except for 1 week when the flu was really bad," Dr. Wright said. "Humans consider this normal health." Commander Thex sat down heavily in a chair. "On my world, we have one plague that comes every generation. When it arrives, half our people die. You fight dozens of plagues every year and call it Tuesday. What happens when one of these diseases wins?" Dr. Coldwater asked. Dr. Wright's expression became serious. "Sometimes they do win, but even then, humans don't give up easily." She showed them pictures on her computer. "This is from a pandemic 5 years ago, a new virus that our immune systems had never seen before." The pictures showed hospitals full of patients, people wearing masks, empty streets in major cities. "It killed millions of humans," Dr. Wright continued. "But watch what happened next." The next pictures showed laboratories working day and night, scientists sharing information across the world, factories changing their production to make medical equipment. In less than a year, we had vaccines. In 18 months, we had 3 different treatments. We fought back against a completely new enemy and won, while the disease was still killing people. "You were working to stop it?" Warrior Priest Gron asked. "Of course," Dr. Wright said, looking confused. "What else would we do?" The aliens didn't answer. On their worlds, when a new plague appeared, the response was to hide and hope it would go away. They left the hospital and drove toward the airport. Jake had arranged for them to visit Dr. Amy Stevens in Alaska. As their plane flew north, he explained what they would see. "Dr. Stevens studies Earth's climate," he said. "She'll show you what we consider normal. Weather?" "Normal weather?" Dr. Coldwater perked up. "On my world, weather that doesn't kill you is considered good weather. You might want to reserve judgment until you see Alaska in winter," Captain Torres said. They landed at a small airport in the middle of nowhere. Snow covered everything as far as they could see. The temperature was 40 degrees below freezing. Dr. Coldwater seemed comfortable, but the other 2 aliens needed special heated suits. Dr. Amy Stevens met them at the airport. She was wearing what looked like normal winter clothes to Jake, but the alien stared at her like she was crazy. "You're not wearing environmental protection," Commander Thex said. "This is environmental protection." Amy laughed, pulling on her thick coat. "Standard winter gear, good down to about -50 degrees. You have clothing that lets you survive in temperatures that would kill most species?" Warrior Priest Gron asked. "We have clothing that lets us be comfortable in these temperatures," Amy corrected. "Humans have lived in places like this for thousands of years." They drove to the research station in vehicles with giant tires and powerful heaters. The aliens looked out at the frozen landscape and shook their heads. "Nothing can live here," Dr. Coldwater said. "Actually, lots of things live here," Amy replied. "Polar bears, Arctic foxes, seals, whales, dozens of bird species, and about 4 million humans." 4 million humans live in this frozen wasteland. Commander Thex couldn't believe it. Alaska, Canada, northern Russia, Scandinavia, Amy listed. Humans don't just survive in Arctic conditions. We build cities, raise families, have art and music, and universities. They reached the research station as the sun was setting. Even though it was only 3 in the afternoon, the sky was already getting dark. In winter, we get about 4 hours of sunlight per day, Amy explained. In the deepest part of winter, the sun doesn't come up at all for 2 months. How do you not go insane? Dr. Coldwater asked. On his world, the ice storms were bad enough, but at least they had light. You adapt, Amy said simply. Humans are good at adapting. That night, as they sat in the warm research station, a storm hit. The wind howled around the building like a living thing. Snow beat against the window so hard it sounded like rocks. This is a blizzard, Amy explained over the noise. Wind speeds of about 80 kilometers per hour, temperature around -30, visibility near zero. The aliens watched in amazement as the human staff continued their work. Computers kept running, experiments kept going, and people made jokes about the weather. On my world, a storm like this would shut down our entire civilization, Commander Thex said quietly. This isn't even a big storm, Amy said, checking her weather computer. Last month we had one with 150 km/h winds. That was exciting. Power went out around midnight. Emergency lights came on immediately and backup generators started humming. Jake watched as the research team switched to emergency procedures without any panic or confusion. Jake Kim, the maintenance chief, put on his winter gear and went outside to check the generators. Through the window, the aliens watched him work, in the howling storm, fixing problems by the light of a small flashlight. He went outside, Dr. Coldwater said, his voice full of amazement. In the middle of the storm, he went outside. The generators need to keep running, Amy said. Jake's job is to make sure they do. What if he gets lost in the storm? Warrior priest. Gron asked. He won't, Amy said confidently. Jake's been doing this for 15 years. He knows this station better than he knows his own house. Jake Kim came back inside 20 minutes later, covered in snow but smiling. All fixed, he announced. Should be good for the rest of the storm. The aliens stared at him. He had just done something that would be considered impossible heroism on their worlds, and he acted like it was just part of his job. Dr. Coldwater was quiet for a long time. Then he asked Amy a question that surprised everyone. Dr. Stevens, what made humans choose to live in places like this? Amy thought about it. I don't think we chose it exactly. Earth has all kinds of environments, and humans spread out to live in all of them. We adapted to deserts, jungles, mountains, islands, and ice. We didn't avoid the difficult places. We figured out how to make them home. But why? Commander Thex asked. Why not stay in the easy places? Because the difficult places had things we needed, Captain Torres said. Resources. The 4th day of the visit started normally. They flew from Alaska to California, where Jake wanted to show the aliens how humans dealt with one of Earth's most dangerous threats, earthquakes. Dr. Paul Johnson met them at the San Francisco airport. He was the director of a geological research facility that studied how the Earth moved and shook. Paul was a calm man with gray hair and steady hands, the kind of person who stayed relaxed when everything around him was falling apart. Welcome to California, Paul said as they loaded into his van. We're going to visit our Earthquake Research Center. It sits right on top of one of the most active fault lines in North America. Fault lines? Dr. Coldwater asked. Cracks in the planet's surface, Paul explained as they drove through the busy streets of San Francisco. The ground on each side moves in different directions. When they slip, the whole area shakes. Commander Thex looked out at the tall buildings around them. And you built a city here anyway? Several cities, Paul said cheerfully. About 40 million people live in California. Most of them are within 50 kilometers of a major fault line, the TOW. Research Center was a modern building with lots of glass windows and scientific equipment on the roof. Paul led them through laboratories full of computers that measured tiny movements in the ground. We can detect earthquakes anywhere in the world, Paul explained, showing them colorful displays on computer screens. This red dot here is a magnitude 3.2 quake that happened in Japan 5 minutes ago. This one in Chile is a 4.8. How big do these earthquakes get? Warrior Priest Gran asked. The biggest one we have good records for was a 9.5 in Chile in 1960. Paul said. It created tsunamis that killed people on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. And people still live in Chile? Commander Thex couldn't understand it. Of course, Paul said. They just build better buildings and have good warning systems. As if the Earth had been listening to their conversation, Paul's computer started beeping. Red warnings flashed across the screens. Paul looked at the data and frowned. That's interesting, he said quietly. What's interesting? Lisa asked. We're about to have a fairly large earthquake, Paul said, still looking at his screens. Magnitude 7.2, about 50 kilometers east of here. It'll hit us in about 30 seconds. The aliens looked around wildly. Where was the panic? Where were the emergency alarms? Paul was still studying his computers like nothing was happening. Should we not evacuate? Dr. Coldwater asked. From a 7.2? No, we're fine, Paul said. This building is designed for earthquakes up to magnitude 8. We'll feel it, but we won't be in danger. The ground started to shake. At first it was gentle, like being on a boat in small waves. Then it got stronger. The building swayed back and forth, but it didn't crack or break. Books fell off shelves and coffee cups slid across tables. The 3 aliens grabbed onto whatever they could find, but the humans in the building just kept working. Some of them looked annoyed that their coffee had spilled. Fascinating data, Paul said, watching his screens as the building shook around him. Look at these wave patterns. This is going to help us understand the fault structure much better. The shaking lasted for almost 2 minutes. When it stopped, Paul immediately started saving data to his computers. Other researchers came over to look at the readings. Excellent recording, said Dr. Kate Morrison, one of Paul's team members. The seismometers caught everything perfectly. The aliens slowly let go of whatever they had been holding on to. They looked around at the humans who were already back to normal work. That was a major geological event, Commander Thex said, her voice shaking a little. Your planet just tried to destroy this entire region. A 7.2 isn't that major, Paul said, looking confused. It's big enough to be interesting, but not big enough to cause serious damage. The buildings here are built to handle it. What would cause serious damage? Warrior Priest Gran asked. Probably an 8.5 or bigger, Dr. Morrison said. Even then, if it's deep underground, the surface damage isn't too bad. It's the shallow ones that cause problems. Jake's tablet started beeping with news alerts. The earthquake had been felt across the whole region. He showed the screen to the aliens. Look at this, he said. News reports from the earthquake. The aliens expected to see stories about destruction and death. Instead, they saw reporters standing in front of buildings that looked completely normal. The 7.2 earthquake that struck Northern California this afternoon caused minor damage throughout the region, the reporter was saying. Several store shelves fell over and about 50,000 people lost power temporarily. No serious injuries have been reported. Store shelves fell over, Dr. Coldwater repeated. That's all? That's all, Jake confirmed. Humans have been dealing with earthquakes for thousands of years. We know how to build things that don't break. But their day wasn't over. As they were leaving the research center, Dr. Morrison got a phone call. Her face went serious as she listened. There's been a landslide, she told Paul after hanging up. The earthquake triggered it. Highway 1 is blocked and there might be people trapped. The aliens expected the humans to call for help and wait for professional rescue teams. Instead, Paul grabbed emergency equipment from a closet, and Dr. Morrison started her truck. Come on, she said to the group. You wanted to see how humans deal with disasters? Let's go. They drove for 20 minutes on winding mountain roads. When they reached the landslide, Jake saw why Dr. Morrison had been worried. Tons of rock and dirt covered the highway. A few cars were trapped on the far side, and one car was partially buried under the slide. Firefighter Maria Santos was already there with her team. She was a strong woman with short black hair and hands that were scarred from years of dangerous work. When she saw the new arrivals, she waved them over. "Dr. Morrison, good timing," Maria called out. "We think there are 2 people in that buried car, but we need to be careful. The hillside is still unstable." Commander Thex watched in amazement as humans immediately started working together. Some people began moving rocks by hand. Others set up equipment to listen for sounds from the buried car. Dr. Morrison used her geological knowledge to figure out which rocks could be moved safely. "This is insane," Warrior Priest Gron said to Jake. "They're running toward danger, not away from it." "Someone needs help," Jake said simply. "So we help." Maria Santos crawled into a gap between the rocks, trying to reach the buried car. The space was barely big enough for her body, and more rocks could fall at any time. Commander Thex had seen warriors on her world, but they fought enemies they could punch or shoot. This human was fighting against the planet itself, trying to save people she didn't even know. "I can hear them," Maria called out from inside the rock pile. "2 people, both conscious. We need to widen this opening." For the next 3 hours, the aliens watched humans perform what seemed like miracles. They moved tons of rock using simple tools and careful planning. They took huge risks to save 2 strangers, and they did it all without being ordered or forced. When the 2 trapped people were finally pulled out of their car, both injured but alive, the rescue team didn't celebrate like heroes. They just started cleaning up their equipment and checking for other problems. "Don't you understand what you just did?" Dr. Coldwater asked Maria as she packed up her gear. "Rescued 2 people from a landslide," Maria said, wiping dirt off her hands. "You risked your lives," Commander Thex said. "All of you. You could have been killed by falling rocks." "That's the job," Maria said. "People were in trouble, so we got them out of trouble." "What if there had been another earthquake while you were in there?" Warrior Priest Gron asked. Maria shrugged. "Then we would have dealt with that too." On the drive back to the city, the 3 aliens were very quiet. Jake could see them thinking about everything they had witnessed. Finally, Dr. Coldwater spoke. "On Frostbite, our survival depends on avoiding danger. We hide from ice storms. We build our cities in the safest places. We don't take risks unless we absolutely have to. Here it seems like humans run toward danger," Commander Thex added. "You don't just survive your world's disasters, you fight them. And you help each other," Warrior Priest Gron said quietly, "even when it puts you in more danger." That evening, at their hotel, Jake overheard the aliens talking in their own languages. He couldn't understand the words, but their voices sounded different than they had 3 days ago. Less confident about what they knew about humans and Earth. Colonel Ryan Parker joined them for dinner. He was a military historian who studied how humans fought wars. Jake had asked him to come because he wanted the aliens to understand one more thing about humanity. "I've been hearing about your visit," Colonel Parker said as they ate. "You've seen how we deal with our planet's dangers, but there's something else you should know about humans." "What's that?" Commander Thex asked. "We also fight each other," Colonel Parker said seriously. "For thousands of years, humans have been at war with other humans. We've had to learn how to fight enemies who are just as smart, just as dangerous, and just as adaptable as we are." The aliens stopped eating. This was something they hadn't considered. "Most species prepare for war against creatures that are weaker or less intelligent," Colonel Parker continued. "Humans prepare for war against ourselves. That makes us very, very good at fighting." "But you seem so peaceful," Dr. Coldwater said. "Most." The 3 aliens stayed on Earth for 2 more days, but they didn't need Jake to show them anything else. They spent their time talking to ordinary humans, shop workers, teachers, construction crews, and taxi drivers. Every conversation seemed to surprise them more. On their last morning, they sat with Jake in a coffee shop near the spaceport. Through the window, they could see their ship being prepared for the journey back to Nexus Prime. "We need to talk," Commander Thex said, her voice serious. Jake felt his stomach tighten. This was it. Either his plan had worked or humanity would never get another chance to join the Alliance. Dr. Coldwater leaned forward. When we first came here, we thought Earth was a garden world. Pretty and safe, but not dangerous. We were wrong, warrior priest. Gron added. Jake held his breath. Earth isn't a death world, Commander Thex continued. It's something much more dangerous. It's a world that creates survivors. I don't understand, Jake said. Dr. Coldwater explained. On my world, the ice storms come and we hide until they pass. On Thex's world, the heavy gravity makes people strong, but it also makes them slow and careful. On Gron's world, the radiation is deadly, so people wear protection and stay inside. But here, Warrior Priest Gron said, your planet throws everything at you. Earthquakes, storms, diseases, predators, temperature changes, geological instability. And instead of just surviving, humans adapt and keep growing stronger. Commander Thex nodded. Yesterday, I watched a human child playing in a park. She was running and jumping in gravity that would exhaust most adult aliens. She was breathing air with an oxygen content that would be toxic to many species. She was completely surrounded by bacteria and viruses that her immune system was fighting off without her even knowing it. And she was laughing, Dr. Coldwater added. Playing games. Having fun while doing things that would kill most creatures in the galaxy. Jake started to feel hope building in his chest. So you understand that Earth is dangerous? Earth isn't just dangerous, Warrior Priest Gron said. Earth is the most dangerous planet we've ever encountered. Not because it tries to kill everything that lives here, but because it makes everything that lives here stronger. Your people don't just survive Earth, Commander Thex explained. You've conquered it so completely that you've forgotten how deadly it is. They finished their coffee and walked to the spaceport. Jake's hands were shaking as he said goodbye to the three aliens. He had done everything he could. Now it was up to them. Thank you for showing us the truth about your world, Dr. Coldwater said as he shook Jake's hand. And about your people. Will you speak for us at the council? Jake asked. We'll do more than speak for you, Commander Thex promised. We're going to tell them that the Deathworld Alliance has been thinking about survival all wrong. The alien ship launched into the clear blue sky. Jake watched until it disappeared among the stars, then went home to wait. 3 weeks later, Jake's tablet beeped with an urgent message. He was ordered to report to Nexus Prime immediately. His heart pounding, he caught the next transport ship to Alliance space. When he arrived at the station, things were different. Instead of being taken to the council chamber, he was brought to a smaller meeting room. Vexitar was waiting for him, along with the three aliens who had visited Earth. Sit down, human, Vexitar said. His voice wasn't angry, but it wasn't friendly either. Jake sat and waited. Your world has caused quite a disturbance in the Alliance, Vexitar began. Commander Thex, Dr. Coldwater, and Warrior Priest Gron have made some very unusual claims about Earth and humanity. They say your planet is more dangerous than any world in the Alliance, Vexitar continued. They say your people are the toughest survivors in known space. Jake didn't know what to say, so he stayed quiet. They also say that we've been thinking about Deathworlds completely wrong, Vexitar added. That we've confused surviving with thriving. Commander Thex stepped forward. We told the Council about everything we saw on Earth. The diseases you fight every day, the disasters you treat as minor inconveniences, the way you run toward danger to help others. We told them about your children playing in conditions that would challenge our strongest warriors, Dr. Coldwater added. We told them how you've turned surviving into an art form. Warrior Priest Gron finished. Vexitar was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked Jake a question that surprised everyone. Human, if Earth joined the Alliance, what could you offer us? Jake thought carefully, before answering. We can teach other species how to do more than just survive on Deathworlds. We can show them how to thrive. Explain. Your people hide from their world's dangers, Jake said. Humans have learned to work with danger, to use it, to grow stronger. Because of it, we can share that knowledge. Vexitar nodded slowly. The Council has made a decision about Earth's application. Jake's heart stopped. Your application to join the Deathworld Alliance is approved, Vexitar announced. Jake felt like he might faint. Really? But that's not all, Commander Thek said, smiling for the first time since Jake had met her. The Council has voted to restructure the entire alliance based on human survival principles. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means you're not just joining the alliance, Dr. Coldwater explained. You're being asked to help lead it. Vextar leaned forward. We want human advisors working with every alliance colony. We want to learn your emergency response methods. We want to understand how you turn disasters into opportunities. Most importantly, Warrior Priest Gron added, we want humans to help us establish new colonies on worlds we previously thought were impossible to settle. Jake's head was spinning. This was more than he had ever hoped for. There's something else, Vextar said. We have a world that needs colonists. 3 different species have tried to settle there and failed. The planet is so dangerous that we were ready to declare it uninhabitable. What kind of dangers? Jake asked. Extreme weather, unstable geology, dangerous wildlife, and a dozen other hazards, Vextar listed. The kind of place where only the toughest survivors could possibly make a home. You want humans to try settling this world? Jake asked. We want humans to lead a mixed species colony, Commander Thex corrected, teaching other species how to not just survive, but thrive on a true death world. Jake thought about Earth, his beautiful, dangerous, wonderful home planet. He thought about humans who lived in deserts and Arctic regions and earthquake zones and tornado alleys, not because they had to, but because they could. When do we start? Jake asked. 6 months later, the colony ship New Frontier left Earth orbit. Captain Ben Torres commanded the ship, but the real leaders were the human families who had volunteered to make a new home on a world that had defeated 3 other species. They weren't scared. They were excited. Dr. Lisa Carter brought her xenobiology, equipment to study the planet's life forms. Dr. Amy Stevens packed her weather monitoring gear to understand the climate patterns. Dr. Susan Wright loaded medical supplies to fight whatever diseases they might encounter. And Jake Morrison brought copies of Earth's emergency response manuals, disaster preparedness guides, and survival training programs. Everything humanity had learned from 10,000 years of thriving on a death world. As Earth grew smaller behind them, Jake looked around at the mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. Commander Thex was learning human engineering techniques. Dr. Coldwater was studying human medical practices. Warrior Priest Gron was fascinated by human psychological approaches to danger. Are you worried about the new world? Dr. Coldwater asked Jake as they watched the stars go by. Jake smiled. Humans don't worry about dangerous worlds, we just figure out how to make them home. The colony ship flew on through space, carrying the most dangerous species in the galaxy toward their next great adventure. Behind them, Earth spun peacefully in its orbit, still fighting off asteroids with its atmosphere, still shaking with earthquakes, still brewing storms and erupting volcanoes and creating new challenges for its people to overcome. And on space stations throughout Alliance territory, other species were beginning to understand a new truth. The most dangerous thing about a death world isn't the world itself. It's what living there does to the people who call it home. The Death World Alliance would never be the same, and that was exactly what the universe needed.